me for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Welcome back, boys and girls. It's Andrew Zimmel, your host as always. We did a little podcast on HBO Max, what we can expect from that review. We're talking a little bit now about the NFL because this is what happened. I had a lot of free time yesterday, so I was listening to a lot of different podcasts. I was listening to different sports talk people. I'm trying to get a pulse on what other people are talking about right now because I'm not trying to steal content. I'm not trying to come up with ideas, but I was thinking to myself, it's Thursday. I'm looking for something to really dissect. What can I do? And the common thread amongst all of them was people were talking about these NFL quarterbacks. People were talking about NFL teams. Now, I thought it was kind of funny that we don't even know if we are going to have seasons yet, and people are already talking about how, this quarterback has this guy and this quarterback has this guy, and kind of nobody really stopped and thought about a lot of, I think, the nuanced things. And these are smart people. These are people who write about the sport. These are people who talk about the sport all the time. And maybe I missed the episode where they said, well, the sport might not even occur this fall, but we're going to pretend that it is, and this is the people we're going to bring on, and these are the topics we're going to talk about. Maybe I missed that. But I'm listening to it. We don't know if we're going to have a sport. We don't know if fans are going to be at the stadium. We don't know really anything. And people continue to talk about this and talk about that. So what I was thinking is this is the podcast idea. This is what we're going to do today, is we're going to talk ourselves out of every quarterback. Because I think it's very easy. I don't think that it's a difficult thing to do to talk yourself into a quarterback. I think that every NFL team, I think every NFL fan at some point early in the season, that's the beauty of the NFL. Early in the season, you think, well, our quarterback threw 20-something touchdowns last year, threw a handful of interceptions, and we lost 10 games. Well, we can flip a couple of those games. We won some games we should have lost. We lost some games that we should have won. But this year, X named coach joined the staff, and we signed Y free agent in our draft class, got rated number 10 on NFL.com, so I think that we're going to have a better year. I think it's very easy to talk yourself into teams early on. I think it's very easy to talk ourselves out of teams early on. So this is what I did. I looked and I found the NFL breakdown of the passing yards last year. I found the passing leaders from last season. We're going to just go down the list that way. Who we're talking in, who we're in on, and who we are out on, and what we are missing. And it's going to be a longer podcast, but I just think that it's a good idea, and I think it's fun. And maybe if you're a fan of one of these teams, you hear something and you realize that your quarterback might not be as good as you think he is, and maybe you hear something and you think, we might win the Super Bowl this year. Zimmel doesn't like us, but he's usually wrong. So let's get into it. So what we did, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we said we were going to go by the yards. Now we're going to go by the attempts because I think that that's even more fun, and it's just a quirky way to kind of rank these guys. So the number one quarterback in attempts in 2019 was Jared Goff, who threw the ball 626 times. All right. Here's the problem with Jared Goff. So the problem with Goff, I think at this point, is that he is a overpaid quarterback. And I don't mean that he's underperform. I don't mean that he is a bad quarterback. I mean that he is being paid the amount that a great quarterback would be making, and that's where the problem is. Somebody said this one time, and I think it was really smart, that the problem isn't that your quarterback's making $40 million a year. The problem is your quarterback's not playing like a $40 million a year quarterback, and Jared Goff does not play like that. Because the Rams are so tied up in that contract, they can't go get other pieces to help him succeed, to make him play like a $40 million a year quarterback. And he's not playing like that. So he's out. Jameis Winston, he just signed with the Saints. He threw the ball a handful of times last year. Too many times last year, I should say. Threw 30 interceptions. What does that say about him? Well, decision-making has never been Jameis Winston's strong suit. You can go back all the way to Florida State, and I'm not talking about the off-the-field stuff either. His decision-making is bad. He doesn't know how to really read a defense. Granted, he just got LASIK. Maybe that does something for him, and maybe playing in Sean Payton's system does something for him. But I want to put this out here about the Saints. I want to put this out here about Sean Payton. Have you noticed, just something recently I picked up on, have you noticed that ever since they won the Super Bowl, they haven't been in another one. There's a reason for that. The reason that Bill Belichick is so great, the reason that guys like Belichick are so great and Andy Reid are so great, is because they know what they did wrong and they fix their mistakes. Sean Payton thinks he's smarter than everybody else. I don't blame him. He's a pretty bright guy. But the problem with that is that if you think you're the smartest person in the room all the time, you're not listening to what other people have to say. Now you have a quarterback in Jameis Winston who you're paying for a season. Maybe he's just a security blanket to make sure Drew Brees doesn't get hurt. But at the same time, I'm out on Jameis on the fact that he's 25 years old. He threw 30 interceptions last year. That's something that a 21-year-old quarterback should be doing, not a 25-year-old quarterback. All right, Matt Ryan. So Matt Ryan, Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons' offense hasn't been the same. He made a strong commitment to his head coach to try to bring him back. Their offense, they got Todd Gurley. I'm not impressed with the Falcons. I don't think that the Falcons are a team that's going to be competing for a playoff spot this year, and Matt Ryan is getting to be 34 years old. We see time in and time out that when you're on the wrong side of 30, it falls off quick. So if you're a Falcons fan, you're thinking, well, we have Julio Jones and maybe Todd Gurley has been able to fix his knee, and we now have a quarterback who can lead us to the promised land. I'm going to remind you, 28-3, Ryan Tannehill Matt Ryan did not help his case very much. So, Ryan Tannehill, I'm out on you. You weren't able to compete in the playoffs, and I don't think you're the type of quarterback who's going to have a long-lasting career. I think that if this is the year that he falls off, would not shock me. Tom Brady at 42. Well, first off, 42 years old, it's going to be tough. And we're trying to say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have all these weapons. The weapons that they have won them how many games last year? I just got done railing on Jameis Winston, but you have to think that it's not all on him all the time. You want to say it live by the quarterback, die by the quarterback, fine. Tom Brady should be out of the league at 42, and it was the incredible offensive line and the play calling by Josh McDaniels that has kept him around this long. I don't care that he doesn't eat strawberries. It's not going to work in Tampa Bay. I don't know why people are hyping this team up as much. The 42-year-old quarterback who had a semi-decent passer rating last year, I'm not impressed. I don't think that it's going to be a happy relationship in Tampa Bay. I think this is all the teams. This is the team that's going to flame out the quickest. All right, Carson Wentz. This dude can't stay on the field. He's always unhealthy. That's why they signed Jalen Hurts. You don't go get Jalen Hurts where they got him if you don't think that Carson Wentz can stay on the field. If you think Carson Wentz is your franchise quarterback, if you think he's the guy who is time in and time out going to play in playoff games for you, you don't sign Jalen Hurts. You go sign another wide receiver. You go sign a corner. Because they got Hurts, makes me feel like the Eagles don't really believe in Wentz. They don't think that he can stay on the field. They don't think that he can stay healthy, which is a shame because I think he's, of all these quarterbacks we just mentioned, I think he has the most upside. When he's on the field, he looks like an MVP, but he can't stay on the field. He's always hurt. And his wide receivers were trash last year. That's part of the problem. But at the same time, there's a lot of things in Philadelphia that the average NFL fan, I think, are just skimming over. You're not looking deeper into the problems with this Eagles team. The problems is that when they won that Super Bowl, they won kind of by their shoelaces, right? Like, they played excellent defense all year, and then in the Super Bowl, they had to score 50-something points, okay? Like, the facts are that it takes a lot of things going right for you to win the Super Bowl. It took Nick Foles with the Philly special to win the Super Bowl. This Eagles team is now so far out of that conversation to me, it is laughable to even think that they won a Super Bowl just a few years ago. All right, Dak Prescott. This is a quarterback who he's not even on a team right now. You can't even say that Dak Prescott's starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys because you don't know. You don't know if he is a starting quarterback. The $40 million thing. We talked about it with Jared Goff. We said that $40 million isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's that if you can show up and play like a $40 million quarterback. But the thing is, not once in Dak's career have I said that's the best quarterback in the NFL. Not once. That said, if you go back and look at some of the Super Bowl winners outside of Nick Foles, it has usually been a top 4 quarterback winning the Super Bowl. Dak Prescott's not a top 4 quarterback. the Dallas Cowboys don't have a top 4 defense. So now you don't have a defense that is one of the best in the league, a top 4 or 5 defense in the league. Now you don't have a quarterback that's top 4 or 5, and you're going to pay him X amount of dollars. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And this coronavirus thing is really holding them back too, because I think that if they could have training, if they could all get together, him, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb, Mark Cooper, this could be them all clicking and figuring it out. I'm out on Dak. I've been out on Dak. If you are in on Dak, you are tying yourself to a very depressing wagon, because I think that the odds of the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl are just a little bit under the odds of them going 8-8 again. If they don't get a deal done with Dak, we're going to get to Andy Dalton in a second. Phillip Rivers, old quarterback. He looked washed last year. 38 years old. I don't know what you guys want out of Phillip at this point. He's got 15 kids. He's done everything but win a Super Bowl. It's not going to happen in Indianapolis. This guy, I think, would be him and Tom Brady, I think, are competing for what quarterback will look washed quickest by week 6. I'm out on Phillip Rivers. Aaron Rodgers. So now we get the moody quarterback who couldn't get along with his last coach, isn't getting along with this coach, and they just signed a backup quarterback early. You're telling me that this is going to work with Aaron? I just can't buy it. I don't think that this is going to be the year of Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this is the year that he has some miraculous, Super Bowl winning season. I think that this is more likely that this is one of his last seasons in Green Bay. He gets very moody. He complains to the media all the time, and he throws teammates under the bus. Look, if this was new, if he was a Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type, keep it quiet, smile for the media, then yeah, I could say, oh, wow, Aaron got a little bit of competition and might get the best out of him. But the fact that he's always been a dick to his teammates, the fact that his parents don't even want him around for Christmas, it makes me wonder where Aaron is going to fit in this year. All right, let's move on to Kyler Murray. So you're going to tell me a 5'10 quarterback is going to be the best quarterback in the league. You think the 5'10 guy who had an impressive rookie season is going to be the dude that's going to take the league over? It's really hard for me to buy. I also believe in the idea that there is a sophomore slump, that once a team has a little bit of film on you, once they have 16 games worth of film, it's easier to game plan for you. And Kyler did a lot of great things last year. They got DeAndre Hopkins for him, so it's going to be fun to see what he can do this season. But Kyler Murray, the 22-year-old quarterback who's 5'10", feels like a season full of let's make some mistakes, let's make some bad interceptions, and the Arizona Cardinals aren't going to be a competitive team, at least this year. Baker Mayfield, same kind of situation for Baker, who claims that he is an all-team guy, but he had some of the best wide receivers in the league last year, and he couldn't figure it out. That doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. It feels like that's more on Baker. And, at 24, you're going to be able to have some of those type of games, have some type of situations like that. But 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions just makes me think that this is a 500 quarterback. This isn't the quarterback to get the Browns over the hump. All right, moving on to Andy Dalton, who potentially could be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys if they don't get this deal done. Cowboys fans, I'm telling you right now, you're going to say to me, Zimmel, we're going to get a deal done. There's no way that we don't pay Dak. There's no way that we walk into week 1 with Andy Dalton. I say to you, with no coronavirus, that might be the case. But the fact that we are in this situation where there's no face-to-face meetings, maybe Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones has some sort of backdoor, let's meet up with Dak, let's tell him how much we love him type of situation. But I wouldn't be completely convinced that that happens. You can see this guy being on the franchise tag. You can see this guy playing out the next 3 seasons just with animosity. And if that's the case, Andy Dalton could be your starting quarterback sooner rather than later. That's not a good thing. Dalton's been an okay quarterback. I don't think that I was big on him early. He doesn't seem like the problem in Cincinnati, but he also doesn't seem like the solution. All right, let's talk about the worst quarterback who started games last year. That would be Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky has been the worst quarterback, or one of the worst quarterbacks in the league since he stepped foot. I'm not just saying that to be mean. I'm saying that because the guys that got drafted behind him were Watson and Mahomes. That's going to be the quarterback class. This is like if you had Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, John Elway, and then you had like me in a quarterback class. Mitchell Trubisky okay, I guess, at running the ball. I don't think that he's an excellent runner. I don't think that you can compare him to Lamar Jackson, which people have tried. I don't think that he's a very good passer. And people have said that, well, Daniel Jones wasn't a great passer. Daniel Jones is astronomically better than Mitchell Trubisky at throwing the football. Trubisky might be the worst quarterback on this list. Russell Wilson. Now, this one's a tough one. Because if you notice, there's a common thread here. I'm really trying to pick these quarterbacks apart. There's a lot harder things to do than try to talk about Russell in a negative way, because he has a lot of positive stuff. The only thing I can think of is that he is being forced to carry a team, and so far we haven't seen it work. We haven't seen him be able to be the guy that single-handedly wins a Super Bowl. There's like two of those guys in the league, and he's not one of them. So if you want to say that Wilson has a bad season this year, maybe. But at 31 years old, I think that the Seahawks need to figure something out, because if they don't, you're going to waste some of the prime years of this quarterback's career. Derek Carr, another easy one to really break down. This guy, let's be real here. You're watching these games. He's not throwing the ball accurately enough to me. He's not being the type of quarterback that can win you games. I don't think the Vegas Raiders are a team that's like, we need to win the Super Bowl. I think they're a team that's like, hey, we have potentially the best quarterback ever in our division. Let's just try to win 9 games. Let's try to get to the playoffs and see what happens. Derek Carr's the type of guy for that. On any other team, I don't think that he'd be the starter. I'll say that. I think that there's, outside of maybe Chicago, I don't think that he's starting for a lot of other teams. Ryan Fitzpatrick, another guy hard to talk bad about, because Fitzmagic's a real thing. He's 37 years old. He's only a couple years younger than Tom Brady, and yet he looks 1,000 times more athletic and better. This just goes to show you that the dude who eats hamburgers and drinks beer and has sex all the time might be better than the vegan virgin. I'm just saying. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is that guy. He's America's quarterback. He's the dude that goes out there and competes and wins games. At 37, I don't know how much longer he can do that. I don't know if he's the guy that we want teaching Tua how to play quarterback. But at the same time, Harvard grad. You can't say anything bad about a Harvard grad. Deshaun Watson. All right, Watson, this isn't really on him. This is on the Texans. Texans have a terrible offensive line. They got rid of his best weapon, and now he's stuck on a team with an aging defense and a running back who, let's be real here, can't stay on the field. Deshaun Watson is going to be the only dude similar to, it's like Russell Wilson situation, like 10 times worse. Wilson has a defense that's like okay and a coach that's like all right. Bill O'Brien is terrible, and I don't care. Other people have been saying, well, he's a pretty good in-game coach. He blew a 25-point lead. All right, he's not a great in-game coach either. He's a terrible GM, and his in-game coaching isn't very great either. So it's really hard for me to be like, oh, it's just the fact that he's a bad GM. No, he's not a great coach, and Watson has to play for this guy. And if you take the worst case of Dak Prescott and you take the worst case of Russell Wilson, both of those are now on Deshaun. Kyle Allen, not a lot of bad things. Again, not a lot of bad things, not a lot of good things. He's got the best running back in the game. He's another one of those guys where it's going to be a little bit longer for me to be like, oh, this guy sucks, or oh, this guy okay. He plays in one of the toughest divisions with the Saints and Falcons. Maybe this is a team that wins 6 games, 7 games. I hope that he's not the reason that they lose. Let me rephrase this. I hope that he is the reason that they lose games, so Christian McCaffrey gets a little bit of the pressure relieved off him, because I know that the articles are already being written about how if your best player is a running back, you can't win games in the NFL. I know those are already pre-written. I know they are sitting on people's desks. The analytical nerds are just waiting to hit send on those. So Kyle Allen, for the sake of you, me, and the McCaffrey family, please suck, so that he is the reason. You're the reason that the Panthers lose games. Also, just throwing this out here against the wall, maybe we don't think altogether that Joe Brady is going to be able to turn Kyle Allen into Joe Burrow. Like, maybe we just pause for a second and just wait and think that this is a guy who didn't have an NFL job last year. Why was that the case? It's not, maybe a lot of LSU fans would say, well, he could have, but he just didn't want to. No, you want the NFL job. There's like maybe 4 coaches in the college football ranks who won't take an NFL job. I think every coordinator would want an NFL job. Why was Joe Brady not in the NFL last year? It's because he wasn't NFL ready. It took him winning a national championship for people to be like, oh, this is the guy. So it's going to take longer than a year for Kyle Allen to figure that playbook out. He's not Joe Burrow. Sorry about that. All right, moving on to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, another one of those guys, is the best quarterback in the league. Really hard to break down anything bad about him. Maybe he's injury prone. That knee might flare back up again. But besides that, he's probably really good. Jimmy Garoppolo. So he had that inflated win-loss record early on in his career because of the time with the Patriots. He played in the Super Bowl last year, and it looked like they were scared to throw the ball. They couldn't throw the ball with him. Maybe that's a big moment. Let's make sure our quarterback isn't the thing that ruins this. We like Garoppolo. We like Jimmy. Let's kind of hold him back. But he's the oldest young quarterback in the league. He's 28 years old, and he's being talked about like he's like a 4-year or a second-year player. He's not. He's 28 years old. He's a grown man. He's in the prime of his career. If you're comparing him to the guys in this year's draft class, like, oh, is Garoppolo or Joe Burrow better? That's not a good sign. He should be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And this goes back to what I said earlier. If you're not a top 4 quarterback, if your team doesn't have a top 4 quarterback or a top 4 defense, you're not winning the Super Bowl. It's just that simple. And Garoppolo had the best defense, and he was the thing that, if you really want to break it down, if they score another point at any point in that fourth quarter, I don't think the Chiefs come back. But they didn't. He didn't get the job done. So Gardner Minshew feels like everybody's hyping up a 23-year-old who is the epitome of a 23-year-old quarterback. If anybody is going to channel the Fitzmagic energy, it's going to be him. He's in Jacksonville, which is even more of a, if they win a lot of games, if they lose a lot of games, So he's in a good situation. The only thing that I can think is that, is this going to work forever? Is that is that play style going to work for the entirety of his career? Because it's going to be really tough. Josh Allen. So I don't get this. Brady leaves, and now the best quarterback in that division is Josh Allen. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't click with me. I don't think that this was a guy who we were all really high on last year. His numbers are really weird. The advanced numbers are really weird. He's part of the reason that they lost that playoff game in Houston. And it's I think at the core of it, the core of my problem with him is that I guess he didn't have a wide receiver. He just never was able to unleash the arm the way that he wanted to, and that's what was holding him back. But if that's the only thing that was holding him back, does that make him the best quarterback in the division? I think there's more question marks around him than any other quarterback in the AFC East, and that's with Tua being very much an unknown at this point. Daniel Jones, another one hard to really break down because he was only in the league 7 games this year, it feels like. 22-year-old quarterback at Duke. He played a lot better than we thought he did. That's one of the ones that I'll pat myself on the back and say I'm glad I didn't jump on this dude with the rest of the media. Everybody was hating on this guy. I didn't. So maybe we give him a little bit of a break. Jacoby Brissett, he was a third-string quarterback in New England. He looks like a second-string quarterback in Indianapolis. He's not going to start a ton of games. I think Phillip will be the starter. So congrats. Welcome to the backup club. Kirk Cousins, you put him on a primetime game, he's going to shit the bed. You put him on a random NBC or a random Fox noon kickoff, he's set. He'll put up 500 yards and 7 TDs. You put him in primetime, a must-win game, he's going to cower away. So Kirk Cousins, wake up, smell the coffee, be a big game quarterback. Sam Darnold, the mono thing was weird last year. I don't really hold that too much against him. I do want him to look at all the people who are saying Josh Allen's the best quarterback in that division and put that as poster board material, put that on your dream board, and really focus on that. Don't focus on going to Soho House. Don't focus on going to the clubs in New York, especially now. Honestly, let's do this. Of all the quarterbacks who could have got coronavirus, doesn't it feel like Sam Darnold would be the most likely to get coronavirus? He'd sneak some girl up to his apartment during quarantine and get corona, because that 100% feels like a story that could have been written. Lamar Jackson, another one. He just won the MVP. Kind of difficult to say. oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But you got to look at the playoff numbers. The playoff numbers are not happy. They're not a good number. It's sad and rainy. They're cloudy. Those are the numbers around Lamar Jackson. I think that of all the quarterbacks on this list, he's the one that has the most to prove in the playoffs. And that's including Matt Ryan, who blew a lead in the Super Bowl. I think the redemption arc for Lamar in the playoffs is as good or better than any other quarterback on this list. Drew Brees. So this is my problem with him. 4 years old. He's in the same category as Tom Brady. Why are we all thinking that he is 27? Why is everybody in the league thinking that this is the dude who's going to throw for 5,000 yards and 40 TDs? I think that the drop-off for him is going to happen the same way it happened with Manning. That just one day he wakes up and he can't throw the ball 15 yards. This entire team, this entire offense is built around Drew Brees. And I get it. Like, that's just what you do with your quarterback. But there doesn't feel like there's a contingency plan. There doesn't feel like life after Drew Brees, even with Jameis on the roster, doesn't feel like it's going to be a smooth transition, to say the least. I like Drew Brees, but he feels like Dan Marino with a ring. And I don't think anybody's thinking... I personally do not know anybody who says Dan Marino is the best quarterback of all time. I think they all have him at like 5. So maybe we put Brees at 5 and we calm down. He's 40 years old. Let's make sure he doesn't like have to put on his Depends in the morning. Puts him on the right way. Matthew Stafford, 31 years old, injured a lot, big arm. He's the worst, best quarterback. If you talk to me about quarterbacks who didn't win a single thing in their careers and then were kind of put in the history books because of the numbers they put up, if there was a Devin Booker of the NFL, it would be Matthew Stafford's career. Matthew Stafford put up so many empty stats, it is incredible. And the same thing, I said the same thing about Calvin Johnson, I've said the same thing about Barry Sanders, is that guys who put up these massive numbers in Detroit but don't win anything, I think that there needs to be a name for those. And it's like the Detroit lying in the history books. I think that needs to be the name for those 3 guys, because all 3 of those guys are going to go down in history as one of the best passers, just by numbers, one of the best receivers, just by numbers, one of the best running backs, just by numbers. The Detroit lying in the history books. Ryan Tannehill, another quarterback hard to argue against. He just won a playoff game in New England. He was a couple plays away from going to the Super Bowl. However, I don't know if you can say Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback for us if you're another team. This entire offense is built on don't let Tannehill screw this up. Just don't let him screw this up, and we can be a Super Bowl contending team. They got Derrick Henry. This team is very much focused on the run. I don't like the way that this is like set up. I think that his downfall will be quick, and I can't imagine that he will be in Tennessee for more than like 2 seasons. I could totally see them drafting a quarterback next year and him being on his way out. Mason Rudolph for Pittsburgh. He was one of the many quarterbacks that they went through this year. He also was an alleged racist. Enough said. Joe Flacco, 34-year-old quarterback. He's going to play for another team, his 3rd team in his career. I remember when he was in Baltimore, he was a big-arm quarterback. Now he's a small-arm quarterback. I don't know what he does going forward. I don't think that his career is going to go much other places than where it is at this moment. He is now signed to the New York Jets to fight with Sam Darnold for a quarterbacking spot. Come on. Welcome to the backup club, Joe Flacco. Case Keenum, same situation. Welcome to the backup club, Case Keenum. You are a quarterback who will forever be endearing to me in my heart for winning me that game against the Saints in the divisional round. You always will be a spur in my side for the NFC Championship performance you put up. Dwayne Haskins, 22-year-old quarterback, really hard to talk bad about, a guy who's very young in the league, but it doesn't feel like he's the type of quarterback who's going to stick around very much longer, either just from watching him in college and then watching him in the NFL. Maybe he figures it out. Maybe I'm wrong, but too young to really decide. Teddy Bridgewater, welcome to the backup club. You are now the quarterback in Carolina. You are going to be fighting with Kyle Allen for a starting job. This is the guy who I think is going to have a little bit more chance of starting because he is an NFL quarterback, and he probably will be smart enough to get that playbook from Joe Brady and not leave it in the locker room. Devin Hodges, Pittsburgh, welcome to the backup club. Marcus Mariota, welcome to the backup club. You are not going to be seeing much playing time in Las Vegas, barring something catastrophic. And if something catastrophic does happen and you're the guy that has to step up to the plate, I am leaving with my popcorn because it's not going to end well. Drew Lock, 23-year-old quarterback, kind of young. Don't really know enough to talk myself out of him. I know enough not to talk myself into him. There's still a lot of big question marks I have around Drew Lock. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were saying, well, I knew he was going to be really good in college because I thought he would be a better NFL quarterback than a college quarterback. Look, this is bullshit, and I want to put a stop to this now. If you are a college quarterback and you suck, and people are like, well, he'll be better in the NFL, stop and think about this. In college, you get to decide where you want to play. You actively made a choice to go to this school. And now with the transfer portal, that's even more of the case. You actively decided to go to this school. You knew the roster. You knew who was going to be on the team. Rivals has all the recruits. You know where you are going. You are making a choice of sound mind and body to go to a school. And if you suck at quarterback at that school, and then you go to the NFL, I'm going to think you are going to suck in the NFL. Now, Drew Lock didn't suck it in college. He was 8-4 as a starter at Missouri. But that's not great either. And again, I want to put this out here too. 8-4 in the SEC does not make you 12-1 or 12-0 in the Big Ten or 11-1 in the Pac-12. 8-4 makes you 8-4, and that's what Drew Lock was. So I'm not in, I'm not out. Nick Foles, you could start in Chicago. I don't really know. It's a coin flip. You're getting paid so much money that it doesn't matter either. Cam Newton, welcome to the free agent club. You and Kaepernick, two quarterbacks, a lot in common. I don't know why teams are out on you. I don't know what the New England Patriots don't see in you. But Jarrett Stidham, if he sucks, I'm going to come back to this and say Cam Newton should have been the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. Why am I out on Cam? This is a tough one because I like the guy. The injury history, man. And now it's looking more and more like 2015 was an aberration. It feels like it could have happened, and it might have been a dream. You came real close to winning the Super Bowl until you didn't, and that's the story of a lot of quarterbacks. And this is also, pause, this is time to remember. Remember, NFL fans, if you make the playoffs, if you make the Super Bowl, enjoy the journey because you don't know if you'll ever go there again. You don't know. You don't. Unless you're the New England Patriots, and even they don't know anymore. Chiefs fans, enjoy this. Ravens fans, enjoy this. Because you don't know if Patty's going to wake up one day and suck. Or if Lamar will wake up one day and suck. Enjoy the moment. Ben Roethlisberger, he's on his way out of the league. This is going to be a season that is going to crush a lot of Steelers fans because of all the washed players in the league, Ben feels like the biggest wash, and I don't like the Steelers' chances this year. 37 years old, coming off of another injury. He's been injured, it feels like, every other game, and he's a diva. Again, you take the worst parts of some of these quarterbacks and you build them together. That is Big Ben. Like, Big Ben is the moodiness of Aaron Rodgers and the injuries of Cam Newton and the size of Cam Newton. So maybe Cam Newton's not that great either. Taysom Hill. This is the last quarterback I wanted to get to. Taysom Hill, 29-year-old quarterback who is now a do-everything guy. If you are big on Taysom Hill, if you're high on Taysom Hill, and you are not high on Lamar Jackson, you're telling on yourself. You're telling on yourself. Because Taysom Hill is not good. He's not. If he was a good quarterback, if he was a do-everything type of guy, other teams would want him. He would be on another team by now. The Saints don't love him so much that they would turn down like 2 second-round picks for him. I think other GMs know what I know, and that it's that Taysom Hill, it was fun for like a week, 2 weeks of, oh, Taysom Hill, he's really great. But now there's an entire subsection of NFL fans who think Taysom Hill will become the next Drew Brees, or he'll become the next Lamar Jackson, or he'll become the next Patrick Mahomes. And that's not going to happen. I hate to break it to you, but he's not going to be that. The second that they put a new quarterback in there and Hill has to find like another role in that offense, it's not going to work. It's just like he's a quirky player. He's what Tim Tebow could have been. I am out 100% on Taysom Hill. So that's me being out on every single NFL quarterback. That was 30 minutes of me shit-talking NFL quarterbacks. So I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that you listened to some of that. It was kind of fast. There was kind of a little bit of a ramble there too. But again, like I said, it was fun, and hopefully you guys going forward will listen to it and think, oh, that wasn't too bad. Maybe you're in on a quarterback, maybe you're not, but I'm out on all of them. So that's going to do it for the show. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the NBA and MLB Players Association, what they're doing to get sports back. And I'm going to throw this in on the next podcast that I do, talking a little bit more about Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and the controversy around them, because that is pretty crazy. So be lookout for those, and stay safe.